Okay, so this last half of chapter 1, page 16, the Columbian Exchange. So basically, you had three continents coming together. Europe is going to provide the capital, that's money to invest and create businesses. And then they're going to be the markets, they're going to be where the things are bought. And then they're going to provide the technology. So all this originated with Europe. Africa will
Send
be.
Fisher to the attendance office. Send Fisher to the main office, please.
Okay, heard a little announcement there. Africa, slave labor. The New World will supply raw materials, land, um, all kinds of stuff that allow it to become the super place that it is. From this, one of the most interesting is the diseases, viruses, bacteria. Smallpox is a virus, the common cold, lots of viruses in the common cold, influenza. Bring this up in class to talk about. This is very interesting. The native people of North and South America had no resistance, so they couldn't fight them off at all. So influenza can still kill people. People died from smallpox back then, but you could fight it off. I mean, plenty of, I'm sure, conquistadors had pockmarked faces when they landed on the shores, but these people could not fight them off. Decimated, killed off 90% of the native population, it is believed. Extra credit right here. Read this. Bring up the interesting bubonic plague thing. And we can talk about how it's affected our lives today, all the exchange of foods and animals and all of that. Um, the spread of Spanish America. When there was gold here and they made money off of what they grew here, and that goes back to Spain, and it's going to lead to the growth of world capitalism, and we'll talk more about that in class. So the Spanish conquistadors, how did they affect exploration and the colonies? Okay, definitely they spread Catholicism. So if you look on page 18 in your book, everyone from the Rio Grande on down is Catholic. See what you can see on there? The orange and the green, they are Catholic. Um, Most North American settlers were Protestant. So if you go above the orange, we'll talk about that. The Protestants are Christians and Catholics are Christians, but Protestants broke off from, or they protested the Catholic Church. And Protestants today are Presbyterians, Congregationalists, Methodists, Baptists. They're all Christian, they're just not Catholic. So Christians, Catholics, same thing, they just practice it differently. So everybody south of the Rio Grande is Catholic. Well, not every single person. Obviously, the spreading of the language, Spanish, Portuguese, and Brazil. I'm sure native religions and languages still survive, but very remote for the most part. Now, here's one thing I like to do, if you can follow with me on this. Let's compare the European, mainly Spanish, settlement, colonization, conquering of Central and South America, again, looking on page 18, to the settlement of North America, or the present-day United States. Okay, you may want to read this again. So we're comparing the two. If we do this comparison, we see that there are no native peoples, no Indians in the United States except for those on reservations, and those are west of the Mississippi if you look on the North America for the most part. And why is that? Well, native people, they were not put on reservations in Central and South America. They mixed with the Spanish and Portuguese, and there's a word for that called mestizos. They mixed for a while. Then eventually, if you were to go down there, you see completely European-looking people today who have no mixture of Indian in them. You see people who are of obvious African heritage from, former slave population. And then you see native people of varying shades. That's because they mixed. This mixing was because conquistadors were all men. If they wanted to colonize and settle and wanted to have families, they had to have women. So they married in with, the surviving native women. So completely transformed how Central and South America was. In North America, which this is coming in chapter 2 and 3, especially in New England, the settlers were entire families. Once the people were no longer needed, like Squanto, They were no longer useful. They were pushed west. There was no mixing. That's the reason there are no Indians, incorrectly used word, in Indiana, land of the Indians. Okay? No mixing. There, and then their history comes later also with the reservations. Well, that comes in a later chapter. Spain moved upward, used the West Indies as a training ground for the mainland. Okay, that's all in your reading. Read about the encomienda system. It was basically Spain giving land to their European settlers, and they enslaved the Indians. And when the Indians couldn't survive because of diseases and they just couldn't handle that, then they brought Africans over. So it was a very severe, harsh system. Okay, you can read about this, and this is, you don't have to get into too much detail. Read about the Black Legend, they call it, and how everything bad was about what Spain did to the native people. And it's pretty hard to defend what they did, but that's where, if you bring up the bubonic plague, it's an interesting comparison, why we say Spain is all bad. And, there was really just a lot of not knowing in there also. Okay, that is it.